The air was thick with perfume and flashbulbs when Claire stepped out of the limousine. Her red dress clung to her like a fiery declaration. She held a hand on each side. On one, Noah, in his tiny tuxedo, watched the crowd with the fearless curiosity he'd inherited from her. On the other, Lily clung to her hand, sleepy-eyed, nearly hiding in the folds of her mother's dress. All eyes turned. The bride froze. The groom went pale. No one spoke. Claire simply smiled and kept walking toward the man who once promised her forever. 5 years earlier, Claire Morrison woke up every morning beside Ethan Whitmore, the man she believed she'd grow old with. He was brilliant, driven, and said all the right things, especially when no one was watching. Their life looked perfect from the outside, a rising tech empire, a home overlooking Lake Washington, and dreams they whispered into each other's skin. But behind Ethan's late nights and carefully guarded phone calls, Claire began to sense something unraveling. Then came the betrayal, clean, cold, announced over dinner like a business decision. He was leaving her for someone who understands where I'm going. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that Claire had left that conversation not just broken, but carrying 2 lives inside her. This is the story of how she rebuilt everything from ashes, raised 2 children alone, and showed up at his wedding stronger than ever. But back then, she had no idea what was coming. Claire Morrison never fit the mold of Ethan's world, but that never mattered to her. She was the daughter of a school janitor and a waitress, raised on hand-me-downs and dollar store dreams in Tacoma. What she lacked in pedigree, she made up for in grit. She worked her way through college tutoring math, while Ethan dazzled professors with his vision for a smarter financial world. They met during a campus volunteer drive. He was charming. She was grounded. Their connection was instant, electric, undeniable. Back then, Claire believed in building something real from scratch. She believed in sacrifice, and she proved it, taking double shifts as a substitute teacher so Ethan could attend tech conferences and bootstrap his first company. While he stayed up coding, she cooked ramen and whispered encouragements. She was there for every first investor pitch, every failed prototype, every long night when the dream looked like it might slip away. But as Ethan's name started climbing headlines, something began to change. He started choosing his words more carefully around her, as if rehearsing for someone else. His hugs grew quicker. His phone never left his hand. Claire noticed the cologne first. Spicy and expensive, nothing like the one she'd bought him on their first anniversary. Then came the gala. Ethan insisted she attend, even picked her dress. He said he wanted her by his side, but once there he barely looked at her. His eyes, his laughter were elsewhere, on Sienna Blake, a 20-something runway model turned wellness entrepreneur who walked through the room like it belonged to her. Claire tried to ignore it, tried to smile, tried to be the woman who once steadied his storms, but in that moment, standing alone by the bar, watching her husband laugh with someone half her age, something inside Claire cracked, and she felt it, like porcelain under pressure. A week later, he told her, no drama, no apology, just a calm, calculated explanation. We've grown apart, Claire. I think you deserve something simpler. Someone who really sees you. And just like that, her world, every promise they'd built together, collapsed into silence. That was the night everything began to fall apart. All Claire had ever wanted was something solid. Not luxury, not attention, just love that didn't flinch when tested. Her biggest dream was simple, a family, Sunday breakfasts with messy hair and cartoon pajamas, a little home with laughter in the walls and muddy sneakers by the door. And she thought, no, she believed, Ethan wanted that too. So when he left, it wasn't just a man walking out the door. It was the shattering of everything she thought she was building. He moved out the following morning. She stood in the doorway barefoot, watching the Tesla pull out of their driveway. The wind was sharp, the silence sharper. He didn't look back. The headlines came fast. Tech visionary Ethan Whitmore, splits from wife, seen with Sienna Blake in Maui. Her name wasn't even mentioned. When it was, It came with a lowercase dignity. Ex-wife Claire Morrison, a former teacher. The house felt foreign after that, expensive but hollow. Every room echoed with what had been taken. She started sleeping in the guest room, as if the memories in their bed were too heavy to carry. Then came the fatigue, the nausea, the strange sense that her body wasn't just grieving, but changing. She dismissed it at first. Stress, surely. Her appetite was off, and her emotions were wrecked. But when she fainted in the cereal aisle of the grocery store, the truth came knocking. Dr. Maya Chen, a kind-eyed OB-GYN, looked at the ultrasound screen and blinked. "Claire," she said softly. "You're pregnant." Claire's breath caught. She shook her head. "No, that's not possible. I mean, we only—" Dr. Chen turned the screen. "It only takes once." But then she adjusted the probe, and Claire saw it. Not one, but two tiny flickers on the screen. Heartbeats, separate, steady. "Twins," the doctor whispered. Claire couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She stared at the grainy image, her mind spinning. Two. She was alone, betrayed, broke in every way that mattered, and now carrying not one, but two lives. She didn't tell Ethan. Not that night, not the next. Not after the official announcement of his engagement to Sienna went viral. She knew how it would go. The twins would become gossip, ammunition, leverage, and they deserved more than that. So she stayed quiet. She went home, opened a blank notebook, and wrote two names she'd never forget: Noah and Lily. And she still believed, somehow, that she could figure this out. She still thought maybe she could fix it all. The winter after the twins' ultrasound was brutal. Claire moved out of the glass and steel house Ethan left behind. She couldn't afford the taxes, let alone the upkeep. She rented a modest two-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Seattle, with water stains on the ceiling and a heater that rattled like it had a grudge. No one came to visit. Her phone barely rang. Her world, once filled with gala invitations and tech launches, had gone quiet, replaced by medical appointments, online forums for high-risk pregnancies, and 3 a.m. tears soaked into cheap pillowcases. She sold her wedding ring, used the money to pay for prenatal vitamins and a better mattress. There was no baby shower, no registry, just a woman alone building a life from splinters. The loneliness was suffocating. Some nights she sat on the floor of what would become the nursery, back pressed against the cold wall, hands over her growing belly, and whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't plan for it to be this way." She read everything she could find about twin pregnancies, NICU statistics, breastfeeding schedules. She joined a support group online under a fake name, Seattle Mama 24. It helped a little. Not much. One day, after a long appointment filled with concerned frowns and increased monitoring, Dr. Chen gently touched Claire's arm. "You need rest. Real rest. Stress is dangerous for all three of you." Claire smiled weakly. "I can't afford rest. Rent's due. Groceries don't wait." Dr. Chen looked like she wanted to say more, but nodded instead. Claire's teaching license had lapsed. There wasn't time or energy to renew it. So she got creative. She started writing under that same anonymous handle. Blog posts, honest ones, raw, about betrayal, loneliness, and finding a heartbeat on the darkest day of your life. To her surprise, people read them, and then responded. A woman in Michigan sent her an email. "I left my abusive husband while pregnant too. Your words helped me breathe again." Another from Vermont wrote, "I'm not a mom, but I know what it means to feel abandoned. Please keep writing." Claire had no idea she was building something that would one day help thousands. Right now, it was just survival. Then came the worst night. She woke up to a sharp pain in her side. Blood, too much of it. She panicked. The ambulance lights painted her walls in red and white. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she was rushed through sterile corridors, strapped to monitors, needles in both arms. She thought she'd lost them. She thought, "This is it. They're gone." But hours later, in a quiet recovery room, Dr. Chen sat beside her and smiled gently. "They're okay," she said. "Still strong. Still with you." Claire broke. She sobbed until her voice vanished, clutching her belly like it was the only thing tethering her to the world. That night, she realized something. No one was coming to save her. Not Ethan, not family, not luck. She was on her own, and she would have to rise, not for revenge, not for closure, but for Noah and Lily. They were her beginning now. And you? Have you ever hit a point where the silence was louder than the pain, where you had to rebuild from nothing, not for yourself, but for someone who hadn't even arrived yet? Tell me in the comments. Maybe your story is the light someone else needs right now. Maybe you've already risen higher than you think. The morning after that hospital scare, Claire sat alone at her tiny kitchen table, watching snow gather on the fire escape. Her arms were sore from IVs. Her body was heavy, like it had aged years overnight. But inside, something had shifted. Next to her teacup sat the ultrasound photo she'd nearly thrown away. Two tiny silhouettes. Still there, still holding on. She reached for her journal, the one she hadn't touched since Ethan left. Slowly, almost clumsily, she began to write. "I thought I broke, but maybe I'm bending into something stronger." That line stayed with her. It became a whisper in the back of her mind as she cleaned the apartment, answered emails from strangers who read her blog, and organized doctor appointments she couldn't afford, but couldn't skip. She didn't feel powerful, not yet, but she felt purpose. Claire started sharing more of her story, honestly, openly. She wrote about grief that comes in waves, about how betrayal doesn't always arrive with shouting, but with quiet departures and unread text messages, and about how, sometimes, love begins not in romance, but in resilience. The blog started gaining traction, messages poured in, women asking how to manage money after divorce, how to apply for assistance, how to sleep at night when you're terrified of everything. She didn't have all the answers, but she had something else, proof that it was possible to keep going. One night, while folding donated baby clothes, she caught her reflection in the mirror. Hair tied back, eyes tired, belly round with life. She didn't look like the version of herself she used to love, but she didn't look like someone broken either. She looked unshakable. Claire ran her fingers gently over the fabric of a tiny onesie and whispered, "I don't know how this ends, but I know this. We're not done yet." She stood a little straighter after that, slept a little deeper, wrote with more clarity. For the first time since the day Ethan walked out, she wasn't surviving just to survive. She was building something new, something sacred, and she wasn't doing it alone anymore. Noah and Lily were already leading her forward, one heartbeat at a time. Claire's first real act of rebuilding came in the form of a spreadsheet. It was 2 a.m. Her ankles were swollen, her back was on fire, but she sat at her laptop creating tabs for bills, baby items, medical costs, and freelance ideas. She didn't have time for fear anymore. Fear didn't feed twins. With a few writing samples and a well-crafted pitch, she offered online tutoring and copywriting. Slowly, clients trickled in, enough to pay for groceries. Then the blog, rooted in grace, took on a life of its own. She offered downloadable guides, how to budget after rock bottom, meal prep when you can barely stand, talking to your belly when you're too tired to hope. And people came, donations, messages, women offering to help design a logo. A social worker from Ohio mailed her a used breast pump and a handwritten note that simply read, "You're not alone anymore." Claire cried when she opened it. Angela Brooks, a retired postpartum doula who'd followed her blog, reached out and offered free help once the babies came. No catch. "Just a woman helping another woman who's doing the impossible," she said over Zoom, eyes crinkled with kindness. Together, they planned a bare-bones postpartum system. Freezer meals, sleep rotations, emergency numbers on the fridge. But even as hope returned in fragments, the fear never fully left. Late at night, Claire would wake in a cold sweat, wondering, what if I can't do this? What if I mess them up? What if I'm not enough? She stared at the tiny crib set up in her bedroom, the shelves stocked with thrifted clothes and donated bottles, and whispered to herself, I'm doing the best I can. I hope that's enough. She started therapy, online sessions paid for by a non-profit that read her blog and believed in her mission. She talked about abandonment, about never feeling seen, about how betrayal doesn't just steal your partner, it steals your reflection. Each week, she felt herself come back, not as the old Claire, but someone better, someone becoming. By the 8th month, Claire could barely walk without support. Her belly was a tight drum, her body sore in places she didn't know could ache. Even with Angela's help, each day felt like a marathon inside molasses. Still, she pushed forward. She recorded short videos between contractions and edits. No makeup, no filters, just truth. One video, "This isn't how I pictured motherhood," went viral. Her voice cracked as she spoke of betrayal, of resilience, of finding beauty in unexpected beginning. The comments poured in. She wasn't just a blog anymore. She was becoming a movement. But even movements can feel shaky when the ghosts knock at the door. Ethan's name popped up on her feed one morning. A headline, Ethan Whitmore and Sienna Blake set wedding date. Our forever starts this fall. Claire stared at the screen, her heart racing for reasons she couldn't name. She wasn't angry, not anymore, but something about it, so public, so perfectly packaged, made her chest tighten. She closed the laptop. Later that night, after Angela had gone home, Claire stood in the nursery, one hand on her belly, the other brushing over the names painted above each crib. Noah and Lily. Do you know, she whispered, that no one clapped when I told them about you? No cheers, no balloons, just silence. The babies kicked in reply, gentle, rhythmic. Claire closed her eyes and breathed deep. But it won't always be like this. Still, doubt clawed at her in quiet moments. What if Ethan finds out? Will he fight for custody? Will he use them for attention? Will he twist this into something else, like he did with everything we built? One night, she dreamt he showed up at the hospital with cameras. She woke up sobbing, hands over her stomach, whispering, "You're mine, you're safe, you're mine." But there were bright moments too. Angela threw her a surprise baby brunch with 3 women from the online community. They brought muffins and tiny blankets. No one talked about Ethan. They just laughed, shared fears, passed around little shoes like they were made of gold. It wasn't the celebration Claire once imagined, but maybe it was better. Because now every joy was hard-earned. Every laugh had been carved out of pain, and every step forward felt like a quiet revolution. Claire went into labor on a rainy Thursday morning. She was halfway through responding to an email titled, "How did you learn to be strong?" when the first contraction hit like a lightning bolt straight through her spine. Angela arrived within 20 minutes. Calm, steady, wrapping Claire's trembling hands in hers. "It's time," she whispered. At the hospital, the lights were harsh, the walls too white, the beeping too loud. But Claire kept breathing. One breath for Noah, one for Lily. Dr. Chen appeared beside her, masked but familiar. "We're ready," she said, "and so are they." The delivery wasn't easy. Claire lost more blood than expected. Her heart rate dropped. Alarm screamed. But through the chaos, one thought echoed louder than fear. "I will not leave them." Then cries, 2 sharp, perfect cries. Noah came first, wide-eyed and wrinkled, arms flailing like he already had something to prove. Lily followed close behind, smaller, quieter, but with a grip that clung to the nurse's finger like she had no intention of letting go. Claire sobbed, not from pain, not from fear, but from the weight of it all. The pain, the silence, the nights of whispered apologies, all replaced by 2 breaths. 2 voices, 2 lives that had waited for her to become this exact version of herself. Later, in recovery, Claire held them both, one in each arm. Noah nestled against her chest. Lily blinked up at her with slow curiosity. "Hi," she whispered. "I'm your mum. And you saved me." Angela stood at the foot of the bed, teary-eyed. arms full of clean swaddles and a camera phone she had no shame using. "You should see what you look like right now," she said, "like someone who did the impossible." Claire smiled, exhausted, radiant. "I didn't do it alone." Back home, the apartment felt brand new. It was still small, still cluttered, but now it pulsed with life. 2 bassinets by the bed, bottles in every corner, a rocking chair that creaked like it had stories to tell. Claire moved through the space like a woman reborn. Tired, yes. Overwhelmed, often. But certain of one thing. She had made it. Late one night, as Noah dozed and Lily gurgled softly in her lap, Claire opened her laptop. She uploaded a new video titled, "This is the Beginning." No script, no filters, just her, holding her babies, her voice raw. "I was left. I was forgotten. I was invisible. And then I became a mother." The next morning, the video had over 40,000 views, but Claire didn't watch the numbers. She was too busy living the kind of love that doesn't trend, but transforms. 5 years passed. The apartment was long gone, replaced by a cozy craftsman home with creaky stairs, a garden of wild sunflowers, and art projects taped to every wall. Claire still didn't own much, at least not by Ethan's standards. But what she had couldn't be measured in equity or headlines. She had peace. Noah loved maps and dinosaurs and asked 10,000 questions before breakfast. Lily danced to every kind of music, even the sound of the washing machine. They called Claire their supermom, unaware of how literal that word really was. Her blog, rooted in grace, had blossomed into something bigger than she ever imagined. What started as journal entries in the dark had become a community, a digital village for single mothers, survivors, women starting over. She launched workshops, created free guides, hosted panels with therapists, lawyers, and other mums rebuilding from nothing. She didn't teach women how to be perfect. She taught them how to begin again, and the world noticed. One day, Claire received an invitation in the mail, a national conference for women in leadership. She'd been chosen as the keynote speaker. Beneath her name, in bold letters, it read, "Claire Morrison, founder, educator, mother." She stared at the envelope for a long time, not because she didn't feel worthy, but because for the first time in years she did. That night she tucked Noah and Lily into bed and whispered, "You were never a mistake. You were the reason I became who I was meant to be." Then she stepped into her office, clicked open a blank document, and began her next speech. Not about betrayal, not even about motherhood, but about becoming and the power of building a life from the pieces no one else wanted. Maybe you've never held twins in your arms after being left behind. Maybe your heartbreak didn't come with headlines or betrayals in designer suits. But maybe you know what it's like to start over when no one's clapping. If this story touched something in you, leave a comment. Tell us what kept you going. Sometimes your words might be the anchor someone else is searching for tonight. And if you believe in second chances, not the kind we get from others, but the kind we give ourselves, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Because around here, we tell stories of people who fell apart and still found the strength to rise, stronger, softer, and more whole than they were before. And maybe that's your story too. Maybe it starts today.